Hello, welcome to the Utah Puck Report. I'm your host, Jay Stevens. Glad to be here, glad to be back, and we're going to keep talking Utah Hockey Club. And now one of the play-by-play analysts, Nick Olczyk, guest on the show. Nick, how are you?
Jay, great to be with you. Been keeping a keen eye on your podcast ever since I was lucky enough to join the Utah Hockey Club. You're doing a great job, and I've learned just as much watching you and listening to you talk to our guys and our management and our coach, of course, Andre Tourigny, just as much as talking to them. So I've really enjoyed your work.
Oh, I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Nick, I've seen you play before. There you've got a tie, and we'll get to it. You actually have a Utah tie that you might not be aware of, or maybe you are. But can you tell us a little bit about like you growing up and where you played and well, we kind of know how you ended up becoming a hockey player, but can you tell us your side of
Yeah.
it?
And for those of our new listeners who don't know, I pretty much was born with a stick in my hands. At least that's what my mother tells me. I've an incredible father, Eddie, who played the National Hockey League for 16 years. And so when you're born into something like that, the obvious choice is to do your best to follow in the footsteps and make a life in the game of hockey. And I go back to my earliest memories of being at the rink and watching hockey on TV. And I got two brothers and a sister as well. And my two brothers played. My sister skated a little bit, but three hockey rinks was enough for my mom to go to in one day. So my sister chose the dance route and was tremendous at that. So yeah, growing up, I think Salt Lake and Utah is now. I think it's like the ninth place I've called home in my life, between all the places that we moved growing up, where my dad had either played or coached or broadcasted, and then as well where my career has taken me. But grew up playing the majority of my hockey in the state of Illinois, in the Chicagoland area. Moved away from home at age 16 to play in the United States Hockey League. The first team I played for there was the Waterloo Blackhawks. Played a year and a half there, and you talk about a great community who loves hockey. And then in the halfway through that second year, made my way to the Chicago Steel. A little bit of a homecoming for me, and moved back home. Lived at home, and I had plenty of home cooked meals from mom, which was incredible as well. And then my third full year of junior hockey, I went and played out east in the United States Premier Hockey League for the South Shore Kings. And also played a year junior at in the North American Hockey League for the Minnesota Wilderness. So some would call me a suitcase for the amount of teams
Yeah.
that I played, but I think it was really cool looking back to have played at the highest level in junior hockey in the United States Hockey League, which is the number one feeder for the NCAA. And then after my junior career, ended up going and playing 2 years at Colorado College and had a great time there, and made some great friends. Really enjoyed the area, and I think that's kind of where began my love of outdoors and mountains. And obviously, we have more than enough of that here in the state of Utah. But for any of those who want to look back at my playing career, no, I was never a goal scorer. I was never a point guy. My stats will tell you that, but I always took a ton of pride in being a great teammate, working as hard as I possibly could. But I always felt like the best way I can describe it is that my brain knew more and can do more than what my body could. And so I always knew that even when I did play, that broadcasting and talking about the game and explaining the game and breaking it down was what I felt like I was always meant to do. And it's kind of funny because then any of my teammates will tell you this, is that any of the games where I was a healthy scratch or did not play, whether it be in junior or college, I was always sitting in the stands, and I had the game program in front of my face, and I was broadcasting the game as I was sitting there in the stands. And what's also funny is that, like, look, I was never a top line player, especially when I got to college, but I was actually doing that on the bench as well, kind of under my breath. So I kind of have people
Oh.
look at me and go, who are you talking to? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm working on my career after hockey. So I always knew, of course, as any player, you want to get to the NHL. You want to play at the highest level possible, but you realize that the pyramid is so thin
Oh yeah.
But I always did know that I wanted to stay in the game, and so I felt like what I do now is what I've always been meant to do. And even earlier than that, Jay, I look back when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, where I was playing video games in my bedroom, playing the NHL EA Sports game, and yelling and screaming till 2 in the morning, broadcasting as I played. So I just look back, and people always say, "Did you get into broadcasting because of your dad?" Or I feel like it's always been part of me. And to be able to be part of it at the highest level, I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't wake up very blessed and thankful to do what I do.
Yeah, it's pretty. We talk about it a lot, having Xbox ideas, but then like an Atari skill set. Uh,
Yeah.
that's where I
Yeah.
always land up. So that's how I was ending up in the same pathway. But it's interesting the things you talk about. We glazed over a lot of it there. I want to talk to you about your time at Colorado College, and that's where you
Hmm.
have a direct tie with Utah. Is playing with Nick Halloran. I don't know. Did you know
Yeah.
Nick's our Utah boy? We're proud of him.
Yeah, yeah. No, Nick. I mean, you talk about a skilled player, and the type of guy that there'd be times in practice where, he'd make something happen, and we'd all just kind of look at ourselves and go, "Wow, like he's not going to be in college very long." And if I'm not mistaken, he left either a year or two early to go play for the Ontario Reign, I believe, in
Uh,
the American Hockey League and the LA Kings system, but. Yeah, no, a special player and a guy that was a key cog in the wheel of the success that we had, especially in my sophomore year, where we ended up winning the Gold Pan against Denver, which is kind of the CC versus Denver little tournament there, and I remember him being on the line with Trey Bradley and Mason Berg, and those guys just tore it up. And when you're on the ice going against them in practice, or you're watching them from the bench in a game, you're kind of like, yeah, those guys think the game and see the game and act on the game at another level. But yeah, no, Nick was a great player. He put up some really impressive numbers, and if I'm not mistaken, he's been doing very much the same, playing professionally over in Europe.
yeah, he's in Finland now, doing really well. It's crazy because two of our Utah boys are playing in Finland with a guy that coached Ricard Gromberg's their coach over there. We've had them all on the show.
Yeah,
It's been really fun to keep up with them.
yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit? It's unique to be who you are and with this team, because this team kind of has that where we've got Josh Doan and we've got Tej Ginla. Eventually, we'll have a Ginla, but we have these kids that grew up like you grew up. You have a dad in the NHL. You have an NHL name that everybody knows, and you've had these unique experiences, right? That's kind of cool with our
yeah.
team. And for somewhat, even Baudouin, his dad played here. I e-bugged for him way back in the day, and that's been pretty cool to see that kind of go full circle.
Yeah.
But can you tell us some cool stories about your time growing up? Like you had unfiltered access to the Pittsburgh Penguins
Yeah.
in the height, right? It's like,
Yeah.
do you have any cool
Yeah.
experiences just being a kid at the rink?
Yeah, Jay, I think just overall, um, being around the game at the highest level is like the greatest thing you could possibly want. Um, and I am so fortunate to have grown up with that type of access, as you had mentioned. And I think now when I look back, you don't take it for granted, because I was raised by both my mom and dad to very much live in the moment. Um, we don't see ourselves as better than anybody else. We treat the janitor as we treat the CEO. And I think that's just the foundation of what it's like to grow up with the last name Olczyk, which I'm incredibly proud for. And I think before we get to the great things, there's also the pressure filled side, the expectation, but also for those who are looking for a quick jab, or don't have anything else to say. They say, "Oh, you only are where you are because of your name," or "You're only on this team because of your dad," and whatnot. And look, I think at the end of the day, it forces you to grow a really thick skin very quickly. And I'm not someone who has ever let anybody make me feel bad, even though they've tried to make me feel bad for having the last name that I do. All I've ever tried to do is treat people as well as I can, and to work as hard as I can to make sure that the opportunities that I have, yes, though opportunities have opened the door because of the name, at the end of the day, once you get in the room, you got to be able to perform. And if you can't perform and you don't perform consistently, doesn't matter what your name is, you're not going to be in that room very much longer, and you're going to walk out the same door you came in through. So there's definitely been a lot of that, on that side of things. But I think just such an incredible support group from my family, and such a loving, affectionate, and then, as I said, a supportive group at home and with both friends and family. But honestly, like, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, my dad is my idol. Like, he is my. If I could be half the broadcaster and half the human that he is, then I give myself the thumbs up, and I've done okay in life. And I just see how he's treated other people, and obviously how he's worked. Like, I think I will always look back on those times when I was able to sit down in the family room, turn on some hockey games, and watch with him, and see how he sees the game, how he breaks it down. And I'll tell you what, Jay, the old remote control in our house growing up, the old rewind and play and pause buttons were extremely worn out. I'd be surprised if those buttons are even still attached to the remote, because it's just constant teaching, constant explaining. And so that's all I ever grew up around, especially when he got into his broadcasting days, and like that, to learn nonstop constantly was are some of the greatest memories that I have, about being around the game with my dad. And to be fair, so I was born in 1996, and a little bit of a cool story for you. I was born on October 4th, 1996, and that was, I believe it was the Los Angeles Kings home opener that night. I was supposed to be born in that afternoon. I took a little longer. Thanks, Mom. And I eventually was born, I think, at about 5:30. Now, keep in mind, puck drop was about 7:08 that night. So my dad's at the hospital. He sees my birth, which is great. Runs out of the hospital. He's got his Jimmy Connor shorts and his flip flops on, and the t-shirt. And meanwhile, to get from Cedar Sinai Hospital to the Forum back then, yes, it was only a couple of miles, but with LA traffic,
Right.
you're worried about even arriving there on time for puck drops. So he's weaving in and out, stick handling through traffic. Probably was able to garner 5 or 6 traffic law tickets there. And so anyway, got to the game, got there just in time for warmups, and the LA Kings that night defeated the New York Islanders by a score of 1-0. And I'll let you guess who scored the
No
only
way.
goal. The only
That's
goal. Yeah.
amazing. That's an
Yeah.
amazing
So,
story.
yeah. So and I still do actually have the puck to this day on a nice little plaque that the Kings were nice enough to make for us, and which was great. So I think, in a roundabout way, whether he was playing, which I really didn't see much of. I was born in 96. He retired in 2000. And then he was able to coach the Pittsburgh Penguins from 03 to 05. So I was still pretty young, but I do have memories of running around the dressing room and seeing Ryan Malone and Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby in his rookie year. Like, I don't remember that much because I was so young, but just being around it, you get such a great appreciation for the game and the players and the coaches and the training staff as well. So I think, long-winded, when I do look back, it'll be those moments in the family room, sitting on the couch with my dad, just watching hockey and just trying to absorb like a sponge everything that's in his brain.
That's all amazing. And it's amazing. Going back to those Pittsburgh days. So I used to be an equipment rep too. Like I've always had a part-time hustle. And for a long time, I was an equipment rep. I worked with Innovative, which is now Warrior. I worked with Brian's. So back in those Pittsburgh days, Pittsburgh was one of my teams that I covered. And Ryan Malone was one of my guys.
Yeah.
And Rico Fata. I don't know if you remember Rico.
Oh yeah, Rico
Oh,
Fata. Yeah, he
oh,
could
Rico.
fly.
Yeah.
He could
Great
fly, man.
face-off guy. He told me, he's like, I'm making $1 million a year just to take face-offs and get off the ice, basically. But I had those guys, and I'd come in, and your dad was like, you talk about being respectful. A lot of coaches don't even acknowledge reps, and that's fine. I'm not there to give them equipment or whatever, but your dad was always super cool to me, always took time to talk to me, and he's just one of those guys that was very respectful. And it's weird to hear you talk about like people giving you lip about being I'll call you a Nepo player, or whatever the new phrase is, because the
Yeah.
the truth behind that is, and what you're talking about, is you're getting way more of an education on hockey. You understand it at a completely different level than most kids growing up with a normal parent. My parents didn't know anything about hockey. They didn't even come to my games, right? So I didn't learn anything going home and watching hockey with them or on the drive homes with them. And like, you just had an amazingly cool Anybody that's saying stuff to you is just jealous, right? That's got to be what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
Because any of us would
yeah,
love to have that access and to have that
yeah.
knowledge from your dad.
Yeah, and I think, look, like I don't, and I wasn't raised to approach any of this in anything other than a humble way. If I was arrogant and if I was all about me and looked like then that's a whole nother story. But look, I am so proud to have the last name that I do. I've had people try to make me feel otherwise, but it got to a point where it's just like, you know what? Like, it's not like, for lack of a better phrase, it's not like I murdered someone to get this name. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I was one of the, I didn't choose this. I was one of the very lucky few to be born into a family where hockey has given us everything that we have. So, that is absolutely not lost on me. I understand the Nepo arguments and all that type of stuff. And of course, those things are going to come to be. But the one thing I will say is anytime that is a point of view, watch not the name, the performance.
Yeah.
If the performance does not belong in the arena of that job, then you have case for an argument. But if that person can do the job and they're passionate and they're enthusiastic and they know what they're talking about and they can offer fans, whether they're playing, whether they're broadcasting, whatever it is, and they can offer something, then I think that is deserved. So, like I said, it is not at all lost on me that yes, I have gotten opportunities in my life because of the connections that I have. Absolutely, thousand
Good
percent.
for you.
But
Perfect.
but the reality is that I have worked tirelessly and prepared immensely to make sure that when those opportunities arise, that I am there to not just be there, not just to exist, but to excel and to prove that I can do it. Because I think someone in my position, Jay, you got to prove extra, right? Like you can't, if you get an opportunity, you got to prove extra that it's not just your name or just the connections that you have. So, look, at the end of the day, whether my name was Olczyk or Smith, I feel like I've always been meant to be a broadcaster and to be able to be enthusiastic and to teach the game of hockey. That's all I've ever wanted to do. And there is no other job on this earth that I'm more passionate about. So, very, very glad to be where I am.
It's funny. I say I'm reading a book, but truthfully, I listen to books. And one of the books I'm listening to right now, and I can't remember what it's called, but they talk about there was this guy that had this idea that if you raised somebody in an environment to be an expert at something, that they would be an expert in that, and they would be a genius level at that. And he had 4 daughters, and he raised them to be good at chess, and they were obsessed with chess. They knew it better than anybody else because they grew up with it. And at no point
Yeah.
did they feel like they were being pressured into playing
Yeah.
chess because that was just their life and they loved it. And they became, all 4 of his daughters became superstar chess players. And that was his
Yeah.
plan from birth. He's like, we're just going to surround them with chess. And you were lucky. And I've been around the Parisis a lot, and I've been able to sit down and watch a game. Well, a lot of games with JP Parisi. And to listen to him break down a game or to sit next to Cliff Ronning, who I worked with at Warrior, to listen to Cliff Ronning break down a game and see a guy, he knows if you're using the wrong curve because he's so in tune with the game. Like he'll be like, oh, that guy should be on a live 5 instead of a live 6 or whatever. And that just blows. And I'm like, all I see is a guy going really fast down the ice. Like it blows my mind. And so, yeah, you're bred for this. You're trained for this. You're ready for this. And it's awesome. And you know what? We've watched you. We're happy to have you here. And for a lot of Utahns, we're going to need somebody with that expertise that you have on the air. And have you noticed, or have you intentionally tried to maybe add a little bit of a break? I noticed I've been doing it in my articles lately where I'll be like, hey, on the power play, and then I'll explain why somebody's doing something they're doing that I wouldn't normally do, but I'm trying to introduce a new crowd while not insulting my old crowd. Have you noticed that at all? Did you do
Yeah,
that?
it's a fine line, Jay. It's a very fine line because you are a couple of words away from, in a way, making the hardcore hockey fans kind of roll their eyes and say, "Oh yeah, duh, of course that's what offsides is, right?" But I think there are ways that I try to approach it to work things in where it doesn't have to be super obvious. Like, hey, everybody, this is icing or this is offsides. Like where you can make either subtle acknowledgments to it, or you can fully dive right into it. And I think for an example, like a hand pass, for example, and it was working some of the preseason games with the great radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club, Mike Folta. We were doing the stream there on Utah HC Plus as well as SCG Plus, and the whistle went. It was a hand pass, and And look, like there are some nuances to the hand pass rule
Right.
where yes, you can glove the puck to another teammate in your own zone, but if you glove the puck and push the puck or bat the puck into the neutral zone and your teammate gets it, there are some hardcore hockey fans that don't know that you can't do that. But it is even though originating in the D zone. So I think that these rules in the game of hockey are so complex and so nuanced that no matter how you look at it, there's always little things that people can learn is, oh wow, I didn't really even know that. So, or like high sticking for an example, if it's not involving a goal, if the puck is touched above the shoulder of a player, then it's going to be whistled down. But on a goal, it's not the shoulder, it's the crossbar of the net. So like, but again, like some hardcore hockey fans who've been watching the game for a long time might not pick up on those things. So it is a fine line, but I have noticed that, yeah, it has been very much a constituted effort from me as well as our entire crew. Matty McConnell does an incredible job on play-by-play. Dom Moore, longtime NHLer and has got more knowledge than just about anybody. And Kim Becker in the studio and Sarah Merrifield, our reporter as well. Like we're all doing our best to both satisfy the hardcore fans and the newer fans to make sure that everybody feels welcome and that everybody's learning something. And so, yes, the nuances of the game, the rules of the game, those are the things that we're trying to nail home and bring to light for both hardcore and new fans.
Yeah, it has been a balance, and you talk about getting guys that roll their eyes. I was all excited that Chicago was our first game, and I even said, "Oh man, it's so crazy that in 2 weeks we've got an original six team coming to Utah." And somebody put into the comments, "Original six, listen to this guy mansplaining hockey to everybody." I'm like, I'm just excited about it, and maybe a lot of people didn't know about it. So yeah, you got to have that thick skin. You talk about Utah being your ninth home, and I think that's what you said, ninth home. And now
Yeah. Yeah.
as you're looking at Utah, and now you're here, what did you expect? Like, did you have expectations of what Utah would be like to move in? And how did it surprise you? Or like, what's reality versus expectation?
Yeah, Jay, I think that's a great question. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I'm not going to sit here and say I was expecting it to be the greatest or the worst or somewhere in between. Like, I didn't know. I had never even come to the state of Utah prior. But what I quickly have learned, and now I think my almost month of living here, is the people. Like, it's beautiful and the outdoors activities and the mountains and the food and but it's the people for me that have been so welcoming and warm and kind, whether I'm at the grocery store, or the gas station, or the barber shop. Like everyone has been so welcoming. And usually in the beginning of conversations when I meet people, if I'm walking around the mall or wherever, usually it comes up to, oh, are you from here? And I say, no, I just moved here recently. And then they're the first people to give me recommendations. Here's where you should go for Italian. Here's where you should go for steak, or this is the best Mexican food in town, or whatever it is. So that has been the most amazing part for me, has been the people. And look, I like to think I'm a people person, and you try to make the very best of wherever you are. But now, having been here for a little while, I think the thing that has stood out the most has been how welcoming the people have been. And like I said, when you are the new person, all you could hope for is that people are open to having you in town. And obviously, I know we're part of something very special here with the Utah Hockey Club. So, that definitely adds another dynamic to it. But it has been phenomenal, and I couldn't be more happy to be here now. And my hope is to be here for a long time to come.
So with all those recommendations, do you have a go-to restaurant that you found?
Yeah, Jay, I have to give a shout out, not just because the owner is a fantastic guy, but because the food is some of the best I've had. Mateo, the
I knew you were
Italian
going to say it.
spot.
I knew you were going to. That's what
Yeah,
everybody seems to be liking.
I know that is a very popular restaurant amongst the organization and players, and Bill Armstrong, general manager,
Oh,
and as well as the coaching staff too. But it's just it's a great vibe. Mateo takes care of you, whether you've been in there 100 times or your first time. You feel very special whenever you sit down. So the atmosphere and the food, and I have to say the tagliatelle bolognese is my go-to entree there. But I'm Italian. Like I grew up most of my life in Chicago, so it's pasta, it's steak, it's chicken, and that's pretty much it. I really don't do any of the fish or sushi or anything like that. So give me a nice Italian restaurant. and I've been felt really well at home at Mateo.
Very good. Very good. I love to hear it. And it's funny how many of you guys seem to cling to that.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm
And
gonna,
that's
I'm
and
gonna,
that's how it is, Jay. Like hockey players, we're creatures of habit, right? When you find that one spot or the one spot for Italian, the one spot for steak, you seem to kind of stick to those things, and then that's seemingly how it's been so far.
absolutely. Another thing we didn't know what to expect out of is the team. And now you've been here. We're 4 games in, and what are you seeing? What are is this team exceeding your expectations, or what were your thoughts on this team coming in?
Well, I think when you research from a lot of the other pundits and so-called experts and analysts and everybody that with a lot of these teams, a lot of these people were picking Utah to have a very successful year this year, and I think everyone look the goal is to make the playoffs, right? Like that is what everybody wants. Every player, every fan, every coach, every manager, everybody wants that. But I felt like the expectations to start the year from the very top were to be playing competitive games come the end of the season. And that shouldn't change whether you've won 3 in a row or you've lost 10 in a row. And look, they got off to an incredible start. The one thing that we have seen is that this team's going to be able to score.
Oh,
Not just the top 2 lines, but I think some depth scoring as well. Third line and fourth line can chip in every now and again as well. And though they're, at least to this point, as we head into the game against the Anaheim Ducks on October 16th, while there is yet to be a goal scored from a defenseman, there's going to be plenty of offense coming from the back end eventually whenever that ramps up. And I expect Mikhail Sergachev to certainly lead the way for that. But as far as expectations, have they exceeded or surpassed? I think they're on track because we know that this team has got plenty of skill to where they're going to score. Though on the defensive side, I do think there are some things to tighten up for sure, especially as helping the goaltender in the defensive zone. But man, oh man, the firepower is there, and this team knows if they're going to give up 3 goals a game, they got a really good chance that they're going to be able to score 4 or 5.
yeah, it's been fun to watch, and I think you're dead on with all of that. We're getting points from the D, just not goals. And you're seeing them. Durzi and Sergachev have been amazing. I think Ian Cole is just a solid anchor back there.
Yeah.
And it's seeing those tip ins that we've got, especially in the first game, some of those great passes. With Durzi going down, Koch gets called up. You think that we're going to struggle a little bit more because we're just starting to maybe get the chemistry together?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Or does
well, look,
Durzi set us back?
yeah, Jay, I think that it's a huge loss. There's really no other way to put it, and that's huge with a capital H for what Sean does. And look, I think it's real easy because he's coming off a career year, games played, assists, points. It's easy to say, yeah, just the offense is going to be missing. But this guy blocks shots. He defends hard. He's got a great stick in the D zone as far as blocking passes and not allowing the opponent to be able to work the puck through the seam, through the middle of the ice, which is so hard for a goaltender when the puck goes from one side of the ice to the other, because all of a sudden now they've got to move, get out, get on their angle. But he just does so many things well. And I think another part that maybe goes unaccounted for is how he's able to break the puck out. So mobile and quick, both first 3 strides to create separation, but also when he sees some open ice to be able to attack into it. And you saw that on a play where he got hurt in New Jersey, where he got the puck at his own blue line. He got his head up and he recognized, kind of like a running back, where there's a big hole there. I'm going to go. I'm going to attack. No point in sitting back. And he did. And he tried to make a pull-up play and turn his body to the middle. And then he got hit by Jonas Siegenthaler, and all of a sudden the injury took place. But yeah, the offense is going to be missed 100%. But for me, I don't think Sean Durzi gets enough credit for the ability in the defensive zone and just how hard that he plays. And another part of it too, like when I say how hard he plays, it doesn't necessarily mean physicality. It means that when the offensive player has the puck, how hard is it for that player to get through me to the goal? And it's Durzi's positioning. It's how good he is with his stick. And yeah, he's not afraid to separate man from puck. So they're going to miss him a lot. But though you can't replace him, I think this gives head coach Andre Tourigny and his staff, as well as Bill Armstrong, an opportunity to get a look at a guy like Patrick Koch. Now, is it going to be Robert Bortuzzo coming into the lineup against Anaheim? We'll have to see how the lineup shakes out. Or is it going to be Koch? We'll see. But now your depth is going to be tested, and you're going to get an opportunity to see who can and who cannot play at important situations, whether it's on the power play, whether it's on the penalty kill, or early in the game, late in the game, in those important moments. So, it'll be Sergachev, who we're going to likely see continue to run that first power play unit. And the second, are the reins going to be handed off to a guy like Juuso Välimäki, who I think has great puck ability to be able to handle it, set guys up, make plays from the point? Or do they give Michael Kesselring a look, considering the fact that he has got a bomb from the point? Look him up for a one-timer from the top of the blue as well. So we'll see, but man, oh man, it is not going to be easy trying to manage without Sean Durzi, but they're going to have to do it. And this is where you get a great look to see who can and can't thrive in certain situations.
Another thing I think they're going to miss with Durzi is his locker room presence. Like the guy's
Yeah.
just such a energizer bunny in there. He just keeps everybody going.
Yeah, and for those of our fans, Jay, who don't know, like if you're an injured player, especially if you're out for an extended period of time, like you're not around the team. You're going before the team gets there, after the team gets there, because you're on a completely different schedule with where you're either therapy or your rehab or you getting on the ice. You're going on the ice before those guys. So it takes a toll on a guy like Sean Durzi or the injured players as well, because you just completely, everything gets flipped upside down. You're in a completely different routine. You're not around the guys as much. You're not going on the road. So look, he's a leader in that room. Hopefully he can get back sooner than later, but this team is really going to miss him, as you mentioned perfectly, in the room and of course on the ice too.
And if we're going to lose a guy like that, I'd rather see it now so that we can play around with pulling guys up from Tucson or putting other guys, and rather than later when, every point's mattering and we really need a guy like Durzi in the lineup. You know what? I know I've kept you longer than I'm supposed to, and I just want to close with just asking your thoughts on what should Utah fans, both the fans that have been watching hockey and knew the Arizona team, and the new fans of hockey, what would your message be to them? To the new fans and to the experienced fans, what should the team, or what should those fans expect this year?
Oh, look, I think first off, I just want everybody to enjoy the ride. That's first and foremost. We've got a new team here in the state of Utah, and look, I can't speak to what happened in Arizona. I feel awful for any fan base that loses their team. Growing up a Chicago Blackhawk fan, I couldn't even imagine what it was like if they would have somehow left. But obviously, certain situations and scenarios and reasons made it untenable, and now they're here in Utah. But I just want everybody to rally around this team and to enjoy the ride, because at the end of the day, no matter how the season goes, the National Hockey League is in the state of Utah. Like how special is that? And that's from the vision, the investment, the resources put in by Ryan and Ashley Smith of Smith Entertainment Group, Chris Armstrong, the president of hockey operations, who has been a visionary for pretty much everything that has gone on. Travis Henderson on the broadcast side, and Craig Amazine, and so on and so forth. So look, like we just to be here and to be part of it. Hopefully, you get the sense of how grateful and blessed I feel, and enthused to bring hockey here. But for the fans, enjoy it, because this doesn't happen every day or every year when a new team comes in. And it's unlike anything else, right? Not a full expansion, not a full-on relocation, somewhere in the middle, unlike anything that's ever happened in sports. So just from my senses, the buy-in from the very top all the way to coaches and management and players and broadcasters and fans, I just want all of us to be able to enjoy this, because this year is going to be special no matter what happens. Now, as far as on ice goes, this team should be playing competitive games come the end of the season. That is the expectation from the top. And you look at the roster, you look at the depth up front, back end, goaltending. There's no reason why this team cannot be exactly on par with playing competitive games and being in the hunt come February and March. And we've seen it here in the early going. You do what you do against the New York Rangers, who a lot of people are picking to win the Stanley Cup. That's certainly an announcement made to the rest of the league. But an exciting team, But all in all, I know I've said it a million times, Jay. I just want everybody to enjoy it because this just doesn't happen often at all. And for all of us that are new fans, all of us that are hockey fans for our entire life, I want bandwagoners. I want everybody to come on and join what the Utah Hockey Club is doing here because there's no question that it's going to be an exciting ride all the way till the end.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've been a hockey fan my entire life. I've been big supporters of certain teams. I was a huge fan of the Rangers when your dad was there, and because I was a Mike Richter fan. I've been a big fan of the Kings for a long time because Trevor Lewis is there, but mainly because of Jonathan Quick. Like, I'm a goalie guy.
Yeah.
And I always wake up and I'm like, I don't know, did the Kings play today? Or I kind of knew, but man, I know every day. Well, granted, it's my job now too, but like, I know every day that when the Utah Hockey Club's playing, I'm excited about it. I'm having so much fun with it. And I hope your message is getting through to everybody else, because hopefully we're all the same way, where we wake up and it's that euphoric day where we're like, it's game day. UHC's playing. We're going to see those kids get out there and skate a million miles an hour and pass at the light of sound, like speed of light. It's incredible what we're seeing. And I think we're just blessed and lucky. And you're right. Ryan Smith and Ashley Smith, everybody's put in a ton of work. Nick, thanks so much for your time, man. This has been fun. We're excited about everything. We'll have to have you jump on the show in a couple months. We'll catch up and see how the season's going.
Jay, that sounds great, man. Pleasure being on. I appreciate all the kind words and echo the same sentiment to you. Keep up the great work. Keep informing and entertaining all the hockey fans here in Utah, as well as the Utah Hockey Club fans all over the world, because I know that there's a lot in plenty of different countries and places around the world. But appreciate you having me on. Anytime you need me, I'm happy, and keep up the great work.
All right. That is the Utah Puck Report.
Want to give a special thanks to Chipman Roofing. These are hockey people supporting the hockey community. It's Chipman Roofing. For all your roofing needs, just check out chipmanroofing.com. And if you like what you hear on the podcast, please leave a review, leave a rating. Wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you give us a rating. Like to check out kslsports.com as well. There's going to be more hockey on there. As more hockey comes up, it's going to be always right there, kslsports.com. Big thanks to Madison Miller for putting up with us and making this thing work.